Somebody passed on this name that suggested I watch a few videos of this person, and the girl's name is Kay Griggs. Haven't looked at all of her videos to see what it is she's trying to say. Just watched a very few videos, but it's well worth researching. But what I gather is more, this is why the biggest lesson that humanity is in right now is learning what unconditional love is all about. And from even listening to a little bit about what she's saying, a lot of people, we send our kids to school thinking that that's discipline your kid, get them to behave in school. And yet the school is where, you know, evil lives, and evil is trying to take over your kids' brains there. And we haven't really woken up to that. And having four kids, and being a student myself, I see the game that's played in our education system. I seen a lot of things wrong when I was a kid, but yet my parents said no, trust in the school system. So when I had kids, I was backing up my kids. Definitely not from a perspective, oh, no, my kid can do no wrong. It was more from, if I see something wrong, then I'm going to speak up. I'm going to be my kid's advocate. Um, Lots of problems that I seen in there. One was very abusive. They were trying to lower the amount of students in a classroom, so they, were trying to label kids as having disability and put them into a learning center where they totally ignored them. And my son was physically abused, and the school covered it up right up to the school board. And here this kid is a friggin' genius, and yet they put him as disabled and ignored him. So for years he wasn't getting any education. They put a label on them, they separate them, and they try to um, um, create scores so that your school system looks good so they can get more funding. If it's never the teacher that's the failure, it's the student that's the failure. And yet the teacher teaches, and the quality of their teaching should be reflected on the students, but it's not. If the students fail, then the students there's something wrong with them. There's a society that keeps teaching kids that you don't know shit, you don't know nothing if you fail in any education system. And on top of it, it's not even if one place will drive you insane, it's what the school system does to parents. Is they bombard them with a whole pile of homework and put all of the responsibility of teaching your children, practically a whole day's worth of education, lies on the parent. The parent has to be the one that disciplines the kid to learn what books they get sent home. And the parent has to be the one that's working, the full-time job to make the minimum wage. Even if you're a two-parent household, how many of us are not working, or just trying to find work, trying to pay the bills is a job. um, so it's not like you got a lot of free time to do somebody else's work. And then when you come home, you're busy being the parent to the kids that you're raising, trying to teach them right from wrong. After your kids come home from school learning everything that's wrong, you got to reprogram them at home and think you've got to say. When they go out into the education world, they're basically telling their kids, don't listen to your parents, but it's your parents that are supposed to teach you everything. It's such an insane game. But as you move up the ladder and you get into universities and where there's secret societies, and the whole goal is to get you educated, but educated in a tunnel vision. So you only know one aspect of a reality that's going on, so you can play a role, a part in how to manipulate it. And they've formed secret societies, and best way of manipulating and controlling people is through abuse. So a lot of people that are in these secret societies are scared for their life. If you listen to this Kay Griggs story, a lot of people in the music industry are also scared for their life. They get them really, really famous, and that fame, that overwhelming, everybody loves you, feels so freaking good that when you lose it, when they can manipulate the press to make you look like you're guilty of some horrid crime, which these people own the justice system, because when you get a lot of education and you belong to these secret societies, then they vote you in to be the judges, that make up the laws that you can rule the world the way evil wants it played. Mostly because we're scared to friggin' death and we're fighting with each other. When you see somebody doing something wrong, you tend to hate them, and then you develop another enemy, and this is what's creating so much friggin' chaos. And when you see a kid that's being abused an awful lot and they're being threatened to learn how to kill people, um, what they need is help from society, not us hating them. But if they were a child and we knew it right at the beginning, then we have the compassion to help out. But we lose our compassion when we end up finding out what the game is when they get to be adults, or when they actually get good at their education and start killing people. That's when we sort of, oh, we're going to pay attention to you now, and oh, I'm going to hate you. And it's like, no, that's not the name of the game. It's infinite love. It's um, loving unconditionally. It's trying to understand what led the road up to what all of us are doing to each other. We're all guilty and we're all innocent. And if you believe in God, that's what God's going to say, is you just don't know what you're doing. It's forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing. And when you're in a survival mode, you will do whatever it takes to survive. We just need to learn how to survive a little differently. Now, I've mentioned, how did I come to learn a lot of this shit? Because I had a very abusive deadbeat. I could give you story after story of reasons why we should all hate this guy, and how horrible he was to his own kids. But um, me telling horrible, horrible stories about how big and bad this guy is not going to be any good for my kids. It's not going to be any good for me. It's not going to be any good for our society, although our society is definitely suffering from this kind of behavior. The guy will never be open to seeing what's wrong, or seeing what's causing him to create hell for his life, if we're constantly in attack mode and hate mode. My ex-husband was grew up in a family where nobody had to be responsible or accountable. They all pretend they are, but the fact that he's a deadbeat and didn't pay any child support and did an awful lot of shit over the last 9 years, and his whole entire family was supportive of that. They seen their grandchildren live in poverty, and they were all in agreement with that, as long as their son was having the big house and the big car. They were all supportive of that, and they didn't give a shit how he got his money. Um, all of a sudden, you get divorced, and then you can afford a $300,000 house. Your kids and everybody's living in poverty while you're driving like big trucks. And then when your marriage falls apart because you're not looking after your family, then all of a sudden you get a $300,000 house. Like, it's not a family that is responsible and accountable. Where did he learn the lessons? From his freaking family. The proof of that is, which one of them said that this was wrong? No, they all were, believe in the lie. And that's all it is they're just believing a lie. They have to get approval. They have to look good into society. So you will do whatever it takes to make you fit in with society. Um, I can see where my ex is coming from. Could I have learned to behave a lot different if I knew what his biggest fears were, and I was calm enough to communicate how we can overcome all of his fears? Hell, even if I was married to the guy and there was a chance of being able to communicate, understand what his fears were, and was able to communicate differently with him, I probably wouldn't have gotten divorced. But I probably wouldn't have been dealing with any abuse if I knew how to understand where he was coming from. And but the guy has to be open to communication at the same time. You can't be the only one knowing what the big picture is. um, if this guy is wants acceptance, wants respect, and he's doing everything using money to gain his respect by the property that he has, but he's losing respect from his own kids. He's creating the monster that he's so scared of, because he is basically a good father, but he's been influenced by his family. He's been influenced by society. Everybody, all males have told him, hey, beware of your wife. She's going to take you for everything. I mean, where have we not heard that before? And then jumps in with somebody off the internet that giving him sex and loving all the time. So, and she's motivated not to, to keep money in her house. So, and she's got abandonment issues. So, you can kind of understand the issues that are driving people to have bad behavior, but they are not aware of what it is they are doing. They don't know that instead of giving to your family, instead of building your family up and realizing that's where you gain respect, they're not going to see it. And they're not going to be able to open up the communication if we're not ready to open up the communication. So it is a matter of, like, you have to be ready to have that conversation. It's like, as much as I dislike this guy, I know that if I dislike him, I'm going to turn into him. So I have to be sort of ready and prepared for the conversation and not let my emotions get caught up to the drama of everything that was, and still be more in a state of mind of forgive you for, not what you're going to do, what you did, but let's participate in a change, and what can we do better, and focus on what's good for kids and what would be good for you. And that's what we need to do in our communities, our families, within our countries. That's where we're going to gain some strength, is if we can understand this idea of unconditional love. We're all screwing up, we're all right, we're all wrong, but it's, where do we go from here? Because there are more of us than there are of the few secret societies. I mean, most of them want to get out. The way to get them out is not by being angry with them, but showing, an example of unconditional love. Hey, how can we help you out? Because these people want out. And, they may be police officers, they may be your enemies. But you need to get your enemy to be on your side. There are more of us than there are of them, if that makes any sense at all. Peace out.